In a quiet town nestled between the hills and the sea, there lived a young man named Adrian. His life was ordinary, perhaps even too ordinary. He worked at a small bakery, kneading bread before the sun rose, and delivering warm loaves to the townsfolk. People liked him, but no one really noticed him. Adrian often felt like he was fading into the background of life, a shadow in the corner of other people's stories. One evening, after closing the bakery, he decided to take a walk through the old part of town. The streets there were narrow, lined with crooked houses that seemed to lean on each other like tired old friends. At the end of one alley, he noticed something he had never seen before: a tiny shop with dusty windows, its wooden sign so faded that the words could barely be read. Curiosity tugged at him. He pushed the door open, and a soft chime echoed inside. The air smelled of parchment, ink, and something older, like the scent of forgotten memories. The shop was filled with books, stacks of them, piled high, towering like walls around a maze. Behind the counter sat an old woman with silver hair and eyes that sparkled with a strange light. She looked at him as though she had been waiting. Without saying a word, she slid a single book across the counter. Its cover was dark leather, worn smooth by time. On the front, in faded gold letters, were the words, "The Whispering Book." Adrian frowned. "What's this?" he asked. The woman smiled softly. "It's yours. It finds its reader when the time is right." He wanted to ask more, but when he looked up, she was gone. The shop was empty. Only the book remained. Startled, he grabbed it and stumbled out into the street. When he turned back, the shop was gone too. The alley was bare, only shadows and silence. That night, Adrian opened the book in his small room above the bakery. The pages were blank. All of them. He laughed nervously, thinking it was a strange prank. But then, as he traced his finger across the empty page, words began to appear. Slowly, like ink blooming on paper, a sentence formed. "Adrian, this is your story." His heart skipped. How could the book know his name? He turned the page, and new words emerged, describing his walk through the alley, the old woman, even the smell of bread from that morning. It was as though the book had been watching him. Night after night, he returned to the book. Each time, it wrote more. At first, it recorded his daily life. But soon it began to write things that had not yet happened. Small things, like a stranger he would meet on the street, or a conversation with a customer. And each of them came true. Adrian's fear turned to wonder. The book seemed to know his path before he walked it. He began to rely on it, letting its pages guide him. One evening, the book showed him something that made him tremble: a fire breaking out in the bakery. He could see it clearly in the words, the crackle of flames, the smell of smoke. Panicked, Adrian stayed awake that night. And just before dawn, a candle left burning near the flour sacks tipped over. The fire caught quickly, but Adrian was ready. He put it out before it spread. His boss called him a hero. But Adrian knew the truth: the book had saved him. As weeks passed, the book showed him bigger things, moments of choice, crossroads in his life. He followed its guidance faithfully. It told him to speak kindly to a woman carrying heavy bags at the market. He did, and that woman later helped him when he was in trouble. It told him to give bread to a homeless child. He did, and that act of kindness led to friendships that would change his future. But then, one night, Adrian opened the book and found something different. The pages were dark, the ink heavy. A single sentence appeared: "You will lose everything if you keep reading." He froze. Was the book warning him, or threatening him? For the first time, he hesitated. For days, he left it closed. But the temptation gnawed at him. Could he really stop? This book had guided him, protected him. How could he turn away now? Finally, with shaking hands, he opened it again. The words spilled out like rushing water, stories of his future, of wealth, of love, of heartbreak. But the more he read, the heavier his heart grew. He realized the book was not just telling his story, it was writing it. His choices no longer felt like his own. One evening, he sat by the sea with the book in his lap. The waves whispered against the rocks, and Adrian whispered to himself, "What am I without this?" He flipped to the last page. Only one sentence appeared. "The story is yours when you choose to close the book." Tears filled his eyes. He understood then. The book had been a gift, but also a trap. It had shown him the power of guidance. But true life was not meant to be predicted, it was meant to be lived. With trembling hands, he closed the book. At that very moment, the leather cover turned to dust in his fingers, scattering into the night wind. The pages dissolved into light, fading like stars. And Adrian was left with nothing but silence. But it was a freeing silence. From that day forward, he lived differently. He no longer waited for the book to tell him what to do. He looked people in the eyes, made his own choices, and embraced the uncertainty of life. Years later, Adrian had built a life full of meaning. Not perfect, not without pain, but real. And sometimes, when he walked through the old part of town, he swore he could hear a faint whisper in the alley. Like the turning of invisible pages, a reminder that the story was always his to write.